You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper than again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 7th part of What If Deku and Hero Academia Joins Super Sentai. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of GokuMuto on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. My quirk, everyone says it's evil, so I have to be normal, Himiko replied. What? Midoriya yelled out as he stared at her with widened eyes. There's no such thing as an evil quirk. I mean, there are some that can be used for evil easier than others, but every quirk has that potential. That's so dumb. The only thing stupider is saying you're automatically evil because of it. He quickly got off her with her sitting up as well. What kind of idiot told you such garbage? He knew that Ren was right about something being wrong with their society with how bad discrimination as if they made a young girl like her suffer over having a certain quirk. Then something unexpected happened that even took Himiko by surprise, as she saw Midoriya stretching out his hand towards her to help the girl up. Himiko looked up at the hand in surprise for a few seconds before grabbing it as she was lifted off the ground and onto her feet with ease. "Aw, you do care," Himiko cooed in happiness. "Are you okay?" Midoriya asked. "I'm fine now." Himiko chimed as he found that hard to believe. "You know, stabbing random people is a crime," Midoriya said, letting go of her hand. "Especially with everything going on right now," he stated to her, making Himiko grin. "Oh, but I wanted to meet you so badly," Himiko said with a giggle, and her body started to become gray and gooey. "And why did you want to meet me?" Midoriya questioned, locking his eyes with her yellow cat-like eyes while also keeping up his guard in case she may attack him again. "Because you're one of those go-busters. A real hero like your red partner," Himiko said to him in joy. "The Blue Buster is such a cute name, even if it is not red. I want to know your real one though, I want to know all about you," she said, getting more obsessed by the second. "Well, why don't you put down the knife behind your back and we can talk?" Midoriya suggested while noticing the weapon in the crazy girl's hand. "But I want to taste you," Himiko laughed while revealing the knife. Midoriya then immediately grabbed her wrist and made her drop the knife on the floor. "Okay, now we can talk," he said, kicking the knife in the distance and away from her. "You're so mean," Himiko pouted to him with Midoriya releasing her wrist and putting away his weapon. "I'm izukumidoriya. Midoriya introduced me to her. Himiko Toga." Himiko replied back with a grin that shows her teeth. "Do you need BLD?" Midoriya asked, making the girl's eyes narrowed a bit. "How do you know?" Himiko said with a bit of hostility in her voice. "You teeth," Midoriya said while pointing out. "Also you said taste me, so BLD must have something to do with your quirk," he explained lamely. "You offering?" Himiko tilted her head, getting a nod from her. "Do you want a SXL favor or something afterwards?" she asked, making Midoriya's eyes widen as he blushed from the thought. No. Nothing like that," Midoriya denied, shaking his head and waved his hands in front of her. "I just want to help you is all," he said, getting a look from her. Okay," Himiko said without a second thought, which made him sigh in relief and calmed down a bit. Midoriya then offered her his right arm before rolling up his shelves, as Himiko took it and bit down HRD on Midoriya's right arm, making him flinch from the sharp pain a bit as the girl started sucking out his BLD like she hasn't had water in days. Soon after a minute has passed, Himiko had her fill on Midoriya's BLD and released his arm and exhaled, with her eyes more focused and less glossy than before. Feel better now? Midoriya asked with a smile, as she looked at his arm and took out a pink handkerchief, and started wrapping around the bite wound. Sorry, Himiko mumbled an apology. I really needed that. She said, surprising Midoriya at how different she acted. She sounded so calm. It's all right, Midoriya assured her with a smile. Anything to help out. Himiko looked at him for a moment, as her gaze was analytic. You really aren't like other heroes. Himiko mumbled before pulling up his uniform shelf. So, why did you look for me? Midoriya asked her in curiosity. Well, I saw the broadcast with you and the Red Buster yesterday. I saw how much he hated our society and everything it stood for, so I wanted to see what you both were like in person. Was it only for the cameras, or are you two actually like this? Himiko confessed while looking at the floor. At first, I didn't think too much about our society, that is until I met Ren and he helped him open my eyes to how things really are and how people like us suffer for no good reason, Midoriya said, getting her gaze at him. What did you mean? Himiko asked him. I grew up quirkless. Midoriya said, making her freeze up, staring at him wide-eyed. For the past decade, I was bullied, abused, and cast aside for something I had absolutely no control over. Just like you were. He bit his lips before speaking again. The world is a cruel place. I know that I've seen the bad things that people can do. You mean villains? Himiko said as her stare turned into a glare. No. Midoriya interrupted with a head shake. People, like the ones walking down the streets. I think that there are people that do bad things for reasons that only they know. He said, giving her a serious gaze and response, as Ren's influence was rubbing off of him. People are cruel to others for various reasons. Because they are hurting inside and want a way to vent that, because they want to feel better about themselves, or because they just get kicked out of it. The last ones are the people I call villains, the ones who do it for fun. He explained to her, making her glare soften a bit as she was listening to him. The victims can choose to take that hate and use it to get revenge on those who wronged them. This made Himiko pursed her lip in thought at the quirkless boy's works. Or they can move on. Midoriya said, causing the girl to blink at him wide-eyed. Then where's the closure? Himiko asked instantly. They can't just move on, there needs to be justice about what they did. She shouted with a furious glare. What do they do then? She demanded. The boy simply stared at her. Live, Midoriya said as he took what he learned from the other world heroes and villains' history to give Himiko the best possible answer with what he learned. Living? Himiko growled in rage while grabbing onto his jacket and shaking him, with Midoriya showing no fear or anger, only sadness. What can someone like me do with living in this DMN world where people born with amazing powers get to excel in life, while people me and you get the raw end of the stick by this stupid society that favors those with certain quirks? She demanded in a fit of rage. You're hurting. Midoriya simply said, reaching out and touching her cheek, making her freeze in place. You want to know what to do? Then live, show the ones who hurt you that they can't touch you anymore, that they don't. Control your actions. Leave them behind, let them live their lives, and let karma do its job and take them to justice. He said as he started to remember all of his painful childhood memories with Bakugou and everyone else who bullied him just for being quirkless until Ren showed up in his and changed all that. That's why I want to save people who are suffering like I was. That's why I want to help you now, because what kind of hero, no, what kind of person would I be if I just stood by and let you suffer? You're not a monster, you're a human being who deserves better than what you were given, so please Toga, let me save you from your despair and become your final hope. He said with great determination as he used one of Kamen Rider Wizard's lines in this situation, hoping it would be enough to get through to hurt a girl. Toga stared at him, her eyes overflowing with emotions. Why you don't? Her eyes began to brim with tears as she let go of his jacket. "Help me." Himiko whimpered before collapsing onto her knees. Midoriya then kneeled down to Himiko ground level and embraced her in a hug, as she sobbed and hugged him back. "It's okay, just let it out." Midoriya whispered to her. "Am I a bad person?" Himiko asked in a scared tone. "No, just a girl who had the world against her," Midoriya responded before letting go of her as he looked at her. "But I hurt people," Himiko said in a regretful tone. "Because your quirk needs BLD and no one did anything to help you when you needed it the most." Midoriya countered back. "You need it to be sane. You were trying to cut me up for my BLD, but now look at you, you don't feel the need to anymore, do you?" Himiko looked at him with teary eyes and clenched her hands into fists. "What do I do?" she asked him in a whisper. "I don't know what to do now. We get you to help, I know someone who could help you with this, but you need not only to trust me but heroes," Midoriya said with a warm smile while getting up and saw her scrunch her nose. "I don't trust heroes," Himiko said with a frown. "Then trust me, I want to help you but you have to trust me and others. And if Ren was here, he would do the same for you as well," Midoriya said holding out his hand to her. Himiko looked at him for a moment before sighing and grabbing his hand. "Fine, I trust you Izuku," Himiko said with Midoriya helping her up. "That's good to hear, Toga. And thanks for believing in me," Midoriya said giving her his usual smile, which made the girl blush a bit from his bright smile. "You know Izuku, you have a cute smile," Himiko said with a giggle, which made Midoriya embarrassed. "Why you think so?" Midoriya said with a nervous expression before several explosions went off in the direction throughout the city which got both of their attention and made the two remember that the city was under attack. "CRP, I completely forget about the Vaglas." "The Vaglas?" Himiko said with confusion. "The ones responsible for attacking the city right now," Midoriya said to her, a panicked and serious look on his face. "While we were standing here talking, people are getting hurt. I need to go before more innocent lives are lost," he said before taking off to do his Sentai duties. But Himiko grabbed the boy his arm and held it in place, which made Midoriya look back at the girl with a bewildered expression. "Toga?" Midoriya said looking at the girl in confusion at why she stopped him. "Wait. I wanted help," Himiko said with a serious expression, which made Midoriya's eyes widen. "What?" Midoriya cried out in surprise. Look Toga, I don't think that's a good idea since when this attack first started, I saw how badly the heroes were losing to these things," Himiko said cutting him off with a serious look on her face. "It's like whatever the heroes threw at them, they just walked it off like it was not and went right back to destroying everything around them. Which is why I want to help watch your back in case you get overwhelmed, since from what I've seen so far you Go-Busters are the only ones about to defeat these things without much thought," she said giving her reason to him. "But it'll be really dangerous coming with me," Midoriya warned her. "I'll be fine, as long as I'm with you," Himiko said with a confident smile, before pulling out a knife and playing with it in her hand skillfully. "Besides may not look it, but I do know my way around a fight and am pretty good at using a blade." Midoriya looked at her for a good few seconds and thought about everything she said, seeing how bad things were in the city and that a little help would make things a bit easier for him. "Okay fine, but you're going to need this," Midoriya said before pushing the button on his transport. "Transport," a voice from the transpod announced. Then the Sogon blade digitally materializes in front of him, before grabbing it in his hand. "Take this and use it to fight the Buglars," Midoriya said Himiko handing the weapon. "From what I've seen and you told me, quirks and ordinary weapons won't work on them, my Sogon blade should give you a fighting chance." "Hum." Himiko hummed as she was expecting the weapon in her hand. "It's a little too big for my liking, but I think I can make it work," she said to him with a smile. "Okay then let's go save some life," Midoriya said with a serious grin on his face. And once this is over, we'll get you the help I promised you. Looking forward to it, handsome, Himiko said back with a wink, as he ignored the comment for now. Then the two of them ran off to help more people and fight against the vagless forces. Just don't stab me in the back, okay? Midoriya jokey said, making the girl pout in response. Hey! Himiko cried out in offense to the joke. Somewhere in the city, All Might soared through the air above the city without moments of rest, with the sounds of human screams, gunfire, fighting, and explosions all around him as the situation was growing grimmer by the second. Thankfully, the god managed to give him most of his strength back, which was helping a lot right now in helping out where he is needed. I have never witnessed so much destruction in my career as a pro hero. All Might thought as he looked at the landscape around him with a weight on his stomach. So this is the threat of the Super Sentai enemies. He wonders before leaping off another building. Such destruction brought back the fateful day 5 years earlier when an entire city was wiped off the map by the fury of the battle against the symbol of evil. But this time the cause was not an ancient and powerful villain, this was evil beings from another reality who wanted to conquer their world. The hero watched as the evil robots continued to wreak havoc throughout the city, as All Might gritted his teeth and to turn a glance downward where he saw a group of police officers and soldiers fighting back against a horde of buglars while protecting some civilians. He wasted no time leaping toward the ground where with a boost of speed as the number one hero landed on the street floor in less than 3 seconds and made them stop fighting to see who it was in front of them. Have no fear everyone, because I am here to deliver justice to these villains. All Might declared while standing between the humans and robots with a serious expression. All Might. The people shouted out in joy as their number one hero arrived to help them. Go and get these people to safety, while I'll deal with these fiends. All Might said while getting in a combat stance. Got it. All Might. A soldier said to him with a nod. You heard the man, let's pull back and evaluate these civilians. He ordered the others. With that said, the soldiers and police officers began to move the civilians away from the area as the buglars continued their advances at the number one hero to kill him. But All Might was doing a fine job holding off the robots with ease as his agility and strength, he was able to punch them all down in a single hit before they could do anything to him. His impressive performance grabbed the attention of all the vagless in the surrounding area, so they were all targeting him as if he was their main threat to worry about at all costs. Unfortunately, everyone, he blow them away, they would always get right back up for more as it was getting really frustrating for the number one hero. Yet none of them were able to do anything against him as he was avoiding all of their attacks with ease as it began to draw to a stalemate. Carolina smash! All Might shouted while rushing at the group of robots with his arms crossed together, before unleashing a double chop attack with extreme force that sent them flying away. But like before, the buglars stood right back up from the hero's assault without the slightest bit of damage. This is getting me nowhere. No more how much I hit them, they just keep getting back up for more. All Might then saw a few buglars aiming their blasters at him and began to open fire on him, as he jumped in the air to evade the attacks, but then throws a powerful punch that creates a blast of wind at them, and sent them flying backward into random objects. When he landed, All Might saw the robots surrounding him while pointing their blasters at him. Not today, villains. All Might replied before punching the pavement hard to WHP up a shockwave of wind that caused the robots to fly back, as continued to battle the vagless with all of his might. Momo Yaoyorozu thought her day could have escalated to something like this. She and her parents were on their way to an evening dinner with some foreign business partners that her parents wanted her to meet. Momo is wearing a sleeveless peach dress and low-heel sandal heels. Her hair wasn't in its usual ponytail, instead tied into a thick braid down her back. But then there was a traffic jam in the middle of the road, much to her parents, that is until the explosions and screaming began as the vagless started their assault on the city, also attacking the people in cars. Because of the traffic jam, many people got out of the car and made a run for it to safety, with Yaoyorozu staying inside their limo where it was safe from the conflict. Right next to the young heiress are her two parents, who looked just as horrified at what was transpiring around them. One is a tall man in his late 40s, with short black hair, soft gray eyes, and flawless skin. He is wearing a gray business suit and brown business shoes. His name Midoriya. The other is an older woman who very much looks like her daughter, with long flowing silky black hair and a slim body like a supermodel. She was wearing a short-sleeve crimson dress with ruffles and strap-high heels. Her name is Mona Yaoyorozu. Please stay back inside the vehicle, sir, and MDM. A butler with a goat horn on his head and legs tells his employers, as he and a few other bodyguards were outside fighting the Vaglas along with the heroes and soldiers. But despite their best effects, all the bodyguards were knocked unconscious as their quirks had no effect on the buglars, with Akiharu being the only one left to protect the Yaoyorosis. Akiharu! Momo cried out in great concern from the limousine. I will not let you, cretin, lay a single finger on this family, Akiharu said, holding the side of his bleeding left arm as he was badly hurt from the fight. Ack! He lets out a battle cry before charging at the Vaglas with incredible agility thanks to his quirk. Akiharu lands a strong kick on a buglar, before charging at another and another one after that as he was gaining the upper hand. Unfortunately, it didn't last for too long, with buglars overwhelming the man quickly as they fire their laser guns at the goat butler. The butler was now screaming in pain after getting shot by those laser blasts and an explosion by a nearby car. He was sent crashing on the floor, badly hurt with severe injuries. Oh, no! Momo cried out, opening the limousine door to help her family's butler from certain death. Hang on, Akiharu. Momo, what are you doing? Mito looked at his daughter in horror at what she was planning on doing. Get back in this car this instant, he ordered. I can't, or else Akiharu and the others will die. Momo argues with her parents. And you'll die if you go out there to fight those things. Mona replied back to her daughter's reckless behavior. Momo bit her bottom lip in frustration before saying, I know, but... Then the girl remembered a certain Sentai speech from yesterday, as she had a serious look in her eyes. I'm going to be a hero someday, and saving people in danger is the type of hero I want to be, even if it means death. She shouted at her parents, who were stunned by her response. The black-haired girl didn't need to wait for a response before bolting out of the limousine and to the fallen butler at full speed. Momo! Her parents cried out to their daughter, running headfirst into danger without a second thought. But Momo ignored their cries as her mind was focused on how to save Akiharu from the buglars approaching him. She knew she couldn't create anything big right now with the little she had to rescue, so decided to do something basic. Momo then used her quirk to make a spear and shield come out of her arms. Get away from him! Momo shouted while thrusting her spear into an bugler's back, making it fall forward. Then she swings the weapon around the other Vaglas near her and Akiharu, as they began to back away a bit. Young miss, please stop. Akiharu looked up to see Momo fight the buglar off while protecting him. You need to take your family, and run away from here, he said to her in a weak tone, as he was barely holding on to consciousness. Momo then jumped back when they started firing their blaster at her and successfully avoids the assault, before skidding backward on the ground in place to stop in place. No, I'm not leaving you behind, Momo said while blocking an attack with her shield. We're leaving here together, and that final, she declared before blocking another strike from the enemy and then counter-attacking with her spear. Young miss, Akiharu said in an astounding tone, as he had never seen Momo act like this before. It's almost like she's a completely different person. But as improved as this is, he knew it won't last for long, done to the Vaglas numbers. As Momo was doing her best to fight off the swarm of buglars, one of them attacked the girl from behind for a sneak attack, with her looking back in shock. Oh, no! Can't block or dodge in time, Momo thought while panicking with widened eyes, as the bugler's claw was approaching her face. Then completely out of nowhere, a red blur that was moving at hyper speed got in front of Momo's backside and stopped the bugler's claw with the sound of metal clashing. Momo, Akiharu, Mito, and Mona's eyes wide in pure shock to see how it was that jumped into the fray. It was Ren holding back the bugler's claw with his Sogon blade. You're the Red Buster," Momo said, shaking with excitement and disbelief. "Looks like I made it in time," Ren said before swiftly cutting down the grunt with his weapon and taking it out. "Would have been here sooner, but traffic today is a killer. He had to fight a bunch of buglars reaching them." "Red Buster," Momo said, getting the boy's attention on her. "Thank you for saving me just now." She gave him a quick short bow. "Anytime," Ren said, giving her a nod and smile, before placing a hand on the heiress's shoulder. "You did well to hold out for this long, now stand back and let me finish these guys off," he said, slightly pushing her aside with the other buglars ready to attack. "Right," Momo said to him before moving to her family's butler to see if he was alright. "Okay, who's first?" Ren asked, taking a combat stance with the grunts rushing forward at them. The Red Buster immediately moved to the left to avoid assault before countering with a punch to the bugler's face, knocking it down. A buglar leaped at Ren from the air but was taken out by a swift left kick before blocking 3 attacks with his blade and then slashing the robots to pieces, as the Red Buster proceeded to slash another one down on his right side. Looking on ahead, the Sentai sees more buglars that need to be taken care of before pushing the button on his transport. "Transport," a voice from both the transpod announced. Ren quickly runs on top of the cars in the area to get to higher ground before leaping greatly into the air as the Ishigan Buster fully digitally materialize in front of him in midair. He grabbed his blaster and began to make it rain laser fire on the enemy forces on the ground from far away and help out some people in danger with them exploding to death. Before Ren landed back on the ground, he then took care of the other Vaglis Yaoyorozu's limousine by firing more laser blasts at them, causing the buglars to first spark and then explode to nothingness as the boy landed on top of a car on one knee. Momo, her parents, and Akiharu looked at Savoir in awe at how he was able to wipe out all the buglars in only a few seconds like it was nothing. "Incredible," Momo said with wide eyes, as she watched the boy hopping off a car and heading towards them. "Are you guys okay?" Ren asked, rushing over to them. This spanned the heiress out of her stupor, as she remembered that her family butler was badly hurt. "We're fine, but our butler is hurt badly and needs medical attention quickly," Momo informed, with the Red Buster kneeling down next to her and Akiharu to take a closer look at him. "You're right, this does look bad. The buglars ready did a number on him and the others protecting," Ren said with a frown, confusing her. "Buglars? Is that what those things are called?" Momo asked him. "That's not important right now. Getting him to a hospital is all that matters right now," Ren said, carefully picking up the hurt Akiharu by his right shoulder. "Don't worry, sir, I'm going to get you some help," he said to the man, with Momo also standing back up with a look of worry. "Thank you for your kind hospitality, young man. And for saving my young miss and her parents," Akiharu said in a grateful tone. "Don't sweat it," Ren said with a grin while holding him up. "And thank you, young miss, for putting yourself in harm's way for me, even knowing I am the one who is supposed to protect you from danger," Akiharu said in a shameful voice as he failed to uphold his duty as the Yaoyorosus. "Stop it, Akiharu. Don't blame yourself for something that isn't your fault," Momo said to him, in a slightly serious tone before looking at Ren. "But how are you going to get him to the hospital with the roads blocked like this?" she asked the boy before a red motorcycle quickly drove up next to the three. "With yours truly, of course," Nick said, surprising Momo and Akiharu. "I'll get him there in no time flat." "Ain't you his motorcycle that's also a robot?" Momo asked, remembering seeing him during the broadcast yesterday. "That's right, miss. Cheetah Nick at your service," Nick said in a prideful tone, as Ren began to load Akiharu onto him. With Nick's help, we'll get your butler the help he needs before you know it. Ren said, helping the hurt man on his bike. I see, thanks. Momo said with a smile and a sigh of relief. Momo, her father called out, with him and Mona running towards them with worrisome expressions on their faces. What were you thinking doing something so crazy like that? He yelled in a scolding tone, making the girl flinch. You could have gotten yourself hurt or worst killed by those things. Mona said in an equally worried tone, making Momo feel guilty for worrying her parents. Mother, father. I'm sorry for my rash actions. Momo said, apologizing to them with her head down. But you have to understand. She looked back up at them with a serious gaze. I can't let Akiharu die right in front of me like that. There was a brief silence before both Mito and Mona sighed out their frustration as they smiled at her. Honestly, what are we going to do with you? Mona said, walking up to her daughter and caressing the top of Momo's hair. You're our only child and we don't want to see you hurt. She said with a smile. I know you want to be a hero in the future and we respect your choice, but promise us not to do anything like that ever again. Mito said to her with his own smile. Right. I will keep that in mind. Momo nodded with a tiny smile. Okay, this should do. Ren said on his bike, with Akiharu holding tightly to him and the Yaoyorozu family looking at him. I wish I can take the others with me, but I can only carry one person on Nick with me. He said, seeing the other unconscious bodyguards on the ground. It's fine, son. They look they're regaining consciousness anyway. Mito said with the bodyguards in pain, as they started to wake back up with only minor injuries. Thank goodness. Momo said with a hand on her heart. You just focus on getting Akiharu the help he needs. Mona said to the boy. And Akiharu, thank you always for your wonderful service, she said his. You're most welcome, Sir Yaoyorozu, and forgive me for not being more useful. Akiharu said to the man with a nod. Okay, hang on tight because it's going full fast from the start. Ren said, revving up the engines, getting a nod from the goat butler. First stop, the nearest hospital in Mizurufu. Nick yelled out with them taking off down the road at a quick pace while avoiding all the traffic in the way. So that was the Red Buster, huh? Mona said in wonder, as she and her family watched them leave. He's an interesting one, that's for sure. I fully agree with you, darling. I thought he was some kind of delinquent with how he was breaking the law, but I guess I was wrong about him. Mito said, seeing the boy in a new light. He sure is someone to differently rely on when it counts. Momo said with a smile before putting her hands together. Please be okay. Hamacho Hotel, afternoon. This can't be happening. David said as he stood there with his hands held limp at his sides, as he looked out at the streets from behind the glass window of the hotel room he was staying in. Mizurufu City hadn't suffered too much destruction like this from any villain attack or natural disaster ever, until today, that is, at least. The streets and buildings lined with vacant vehicles and panicked people. There were a few columns of smoke rising into the blue sky, as the news helicopters flew closer to the scene, with everybody watching the live broadcast could see damaged buildings and signs of destruction that looked more out of a riot rather than an attack. He could see many of the Vagless running around on the streets attacking anyone in sight, with the heroes and law enforcement of this nation fighting back. These things resemble advanced robotic technology, unlike anything he has seen before in his career. David pressed his forehead against the window, and the man gritted his teeth together with him looking at his phone that had a number of missed calls. Not too long after the attack, Melissa left the hotel room to venture out into the city and is now worried for his daughter's safety, as he wanted to go out and find her, but the pro-heroes prevented anyone from leaving the building. David took a shaky breath. Melissa, wherever you are right now, please be safe. He said with a grim expression on his face, hoping that All Might would put an end to all this madness. Mizurufu Hospital, afternoon. Downtown, somewhere in another part of the large city, the Vagless conflict ravaged the once busy and life-filled place of civilization. Despite this world's best efforts, the Vagless refusing to let up their attack, all while the innocent life along with heroes and villains native to the city fell in battle, their powers nowhere near the strength or destruction capabilities of the two otherworldly forces, all while the surrounding suburbs and around Mizutofu were being drawn into the chaos as many tried to flee from the raging war to no valid. "Here you go," Melissa said as she gave the cup to the woman who sat just outside the hospital. The woman's left leg had been broken while she and her husband were escaping from the Vagless, so when the woman asked Melissa to bring her some water, the quirkless girl couldn't help but comply out of sympathy. The massive, white hospital was already crowded with people who had serious injuries that hadn't been treated yet, so those with minor injuries or those with injuries that had already been treated were sitting outside the hospital. The police and military had set up blockades around the hospital but had left plenty of room for people to wander around the building without worrying about the robots. Soldiers stood watch at every turn and snipers sat on the rooftops. Several small drones had been launched into the air, and so far, they had managed to keep most of the Vagless out of the area. There were countless people both inside the hospital and around it, a sign that the city's population hadn't been completely overrun, but it was clear that the majority of those who lived in Mizutofu had already been killed by the Vagless. Melissa smiled as the woman offered a weak thank you before returning to her drink. The quirkless girl turned around and began walking around the area, thinking about how things could have gone to hell so quickly. Early that day Melissa was walking around the city looking for Ren as she wanted to talk to him about everything that happened yesterday, that is until a group of killer robots showed up out of nowhere and started attacking the city without warning. Luckily for her, a group of heroes showed up in time to save her and the people in the area while taking them to this hospital for safety. Now the American teenage girl was doing whatever she can to help out the people who got hurt by the Vagless. As she walked into the hospital lobby, she carefully passed by a number of injured people with doctors and heroes moving frantically to help as many people as quickly as they could. Melissa then stopped in place when she saw the soldiers and heroes at the front entrance of the hospital begin to quickly move out of the way. "Get out of the way!" A random soldier shouted to everyone in a panicked tone. "He's coming in hot." "What in the—" Melissa said as she started to hear the sound of a loud engine was heard and screaming from the distance as the automatic sliding door opened up. "Yeehaw!" A voice shouted out loudly. Then suddenly a teenage boy and a man dressed like a butler were driving on a red motorcycle coming straight toward the sliding open door at a fast pace and landed in the middle of the lobby before stopping in place, as this freaked out a number of people with them moving out of the way. "It's the Red Buster!" Someone shouted out as everyone there couldn't believe it. "What is he doing here?" Another person asked how Japan's youngest vigilante in recent years. "No way. It's Ren and Nick." Melissa shouted in shock to see him here of all places. "Ha! Made it to the hospital," Nick said in a triumphant tone, as they made it in time with pretty much everyone staring at them in shock at the entrance they just made or recognized who they were. "Would have been here sooner if someone didn't get us lost," Ren stated to the Buddyroid in a slightly annoyed tone, while getting off his bike. "That was quite the experience," Akiharu muttered weakly under his breath, as he had never driven on a motorcycle that fast before with Ren helping him off as the man was too hurt to move on his own. "Hey, this man needs some medical attention," Ren shouted while holding on to the butler. "Yeah, and he needs it now," Nick said while changing back to his human form and helping Ren carry Akiharu. "So someone please help him," he said as this got everyone but mostly the staff of the hospital out of their shock. The hospital staff began to move toward them and placed Akiharu on the stretcher. "Many thanks again to you both for helping me in the Yaoyorosis," Akiharu said with a grateful tone and smiled despite the pain he was in. "No problem, just be sure to get better for the people waiting for you to return back to them," Ren said to him. "Yeah, you don't want to make them cry now do you?" Nick said. Akiharu nodded to them before being taken away by the doctors, as Ren and Nick watched them leave. "There's nothing more we can do for him now," Nick said to his partner in a soft tone while also looking at them. "Let's leave him to the doctors." Right, then we should get back into the city. There's still a lot of work to do and Vaglis to destroy. Ren suggested as this wasn't the time for a break with the city in trouble. Okay. Nick said in agreement as they made their way to the hospital exit. Run. Nick. A familiar voice called out, stopping the two and getting their attention as they turned to see who it was. Melissa. The two cried out together in shock and surprise to see the girl they just met yesterday here of all places running up to them before stopping. Melissa, what are doing here? Ren asked the blonde American girl. I was in the city looking at you when those things started to attack out of nowhere, Melissa said looking at him intently in a slightly scared expression. I was lucky there were a few heroes in the area to save me and a bunch of other people, and then they brought us to safety. Soon after the military showed up and now the whole city is in an uproar. She explained how everything was so peaceful a few moments ago before all hell started to break loose. Yeah, we noticed that. Nick awkwardly said while rubbing his neck, as he remembered the news report back at Midoriya's place. But never mind about that. Melissa said, changing the subject. You were the Red Buster this entire time and didn't tell me about it. She said to them. Ren and Nick were a bit put off by the girl's question and didn't know how to respond to it, especially with everything that was going on right now. Look, Melissa. It's a bit complicated. Ren said, trying to explain to her the best way he could for not telling Melissa about him being a Go Buster. Boom. Then a nearby explosion rocked the whole place, surprising the people in the hospital and Melissa as they started to panic, and alerting Ren and Nick at the new threat that was upon them. What the hell? Nick shouted with doctors trying to calm everyone down and soldiers rushing outside to see what was happening. That sounded close. Let's go find out what that was. Ren said as he and Nick ran to the hospital entrance to get a look at the situation with Melissa following right behind them. Hey. Wait for me guys. Melissa shouted while trying to keep up with them. When three were near the hospital entrance, they saw soldiers and heroes outside fighting off a group of Vaglis grunts who had broken through the blockade that was placed up around the hospital and were trying to break to kill everyone there. SHT. The Vaglis are here. Ren cursed out loud at how the soldiers' weapons weren't doing much to stop the evil robots. The Vaglis? Is that what those things are called? Melissa asked in horror as they saw the chaos before them. More specifically, they are called Buglar, humanoid robotic foot soldiers. Nick explained to her. Those things are robots? Melissa shouted in greater shock, that the ones behind this attack were machines. How did they get past the blockade? She said in horror looking at the Vaglis started causing destruction and mayhem. Doesn't matter, Ren said, as his tone was serious. I need to take them down fast before they kill all the people in the hospital. He stated as he was about to run outside to help the soldiers and heroes deal with the Buglars. Ren, wait. Melissa said, stopping the boy as he quickly turned to face her, but didn't get the chance to say anything as he saw a very serious look on her face. I want to help you. She said, making both Ren and Nick's eyes widen at the request. What? You can't be serious right now, Melissa. Nick shouted at how crazy the girl sounded. I get that you want to help, but the Vaglis are way too dangerous for anyone to take, whether they have a quirk or not. I know that it would be dangerous, but, Melissa said looking down at the floor, feeling a maelstrom of emotion she hadn't felt in years since coming to Japan and meeting the Sentai boy who rekindled the spark of hope the girl had long forgotten. I gave up on my dream once, thinking it was impossible. But now I know it is possible because of you guys. She looked up, a look of determination in her aqua blue eyes, and made her decision. I'll be the hero, like I've always dreamed of, with or without a quirk. Ren didn't say anything, with him being a bit stunned by the girl's speech, but silently observed the girl as he looked straight into Melissa's eyes and saw that she had the same look that Izuku had when he met him. He found her. The Yellow Buster. So the obvious choice was clear to him as he then turned to Nick before speaking up to break the silence. "Nick, do you have the briefcase with the morphers?" Ren asked his buddy Royd, which got Nick out of his stupor. "Why yeah, they're right here," Nick said, pulling out the briefcase, as he just realized what his partner was doing. "You're going to give her one, aren't you?" he asked, getting a nod from him. Ren said, opening the briefcase and grabbing the last morphin brace. "And I can't think of anyone more qualified than her," he said before closing it up and turning in her direction. "Wait, is that what I think it is?" Melissa gasped in surprise at the morphin brace and knew what Ren was doing. "Melissa," Ren said in a low but serious tone, as looked he directly at her. "Are you sure about this? Because once you put this on, there's no going back to your regular life. You'll have to carry a huge responsibility on your shoulders just like me, Izuku, and every other Super Sentai out there. A duty to protect the Earth from any and all threats," he said, holding out the morphin brace towards the blonde as he waited for the girl to decide. Melissa just smiled brightly at him, with the look on her face didn't waver one bit, as she took the device from his hand without the slightest hesitation. "If it helps me get one step closer to my dream, then count me in," Melissa stated with a grin of confidence. "Then welcome to the team, Yellow Buster," Ren said to her with a grin. "Yellow Buster? Is that my code name?" Melissa asked with a raised eyebrow, getting a nod from them. Not bad. So what do I do with this now?" she asked, looking at the device in her hand in confusion. "Place it on your left wrist, so the morphin brace can bond with your DNA and give you the power you need," Ren told her. Melissa did as she was told and wrapped the morphin brace on her left wrist, as she then felt a surge of power rising inside of herself as the morpher was bonding with her DNA, giving her new powers. "Wow!" Melissa said in awe, looking at her hands. "This feels amazing," she stated, feeling something different about her body. "Yes. With Melissa here, we finally now have 3 of the main Go Busters," Nick shouted while pumping his fist in the air joyfully. "Indeed we do," Ren said proudly with a nod. "Sure, you bond with your morphers, you oughta start feeling your buster power kicking in by now," he said, confusing the girl. "Buster power?" Melissa asked in curiosity and interest. "It's a unity power that each one of us Go Busters can use. Melissa, your buster power grants you powerful leg muscles that give you the ability to jump at incredible heights and perform very powerful kicks." Ren explained the girl's new powers to her. "Does this mean I have a quirk?" Melissa gasped excitedly. "No," Nick said simply, making Melissa look even more confused. "Buster powers is not a quirk in the traditional sense. It is something else entirely. You're just a quirkless human with special abilities like Ren and Izuku," he stated. "So I'm still quirkless then, despite my morphin brace help. I guess that makes sense," Melissa thought to herself while looking at the morpher on her left wrist. Then more exploded went off outside as their attention got back to the matter at hand. "We wasted enough time, so let's go stop these villains for good," Ren said intensely as he looked at her. "Okay," Melissa said, her face turning serious. Ren and Melissa then went into the chaos, as they nearly avoided the flying bullets and laser beams with them charging head first at the enemy. Ren involuntarily ducked under a bugler's punch before throwing a right hook into the robot's face and then a right punch in the abdomen, as he followed up with a quick left jab in the chest that took it down. The Red Buster then looked to see more enemies, slowly took a fighting stance and gestured for the small minions to come at him as they obliged and charged at him. Blocking and dodging a couple of blows, Ren bends down to the floor, showing off his flexibility as he trips all of the evil robots to the floor with a sweep kick and jumps back to his feet as more Vaglas showed up and throws a punch at the young teen, who swiftly dodged the punch as he grabbed onto a bugler's arm and twisted it as the robot flipped over on more of its allies, with it taking them out before moving on to the next bot to smash with his super speed. Melissa ran straight at the closest opponent to her but not before using her newfound abilities to hop high into the air with a mighty leap to deliver a hard kick to a buglar that knocked the robot right at a truck with tremendous focus and shocked everyone thereat. The girl's leg strength. The yellow buster was a bit surprised by her new powers as she had never done anything like that before in her life but didn't have the time to process it with a buglar coming at her from the left side. She got over the shock and avoided the buglar assault before counterattacking the robot with a right punch to stun it, then used that chance to kick the grunt away in the stomach. The American girl used some quick footwork to kick and punch down more Valglass approaching her before flipping backwards high in the air over one of the buglar who tried to attack her from behind and landed a few feet away from them in a fight stance. "Okay, I'm starting to love my abilities," Melissa says with a small smile on her face, as she is amazed at what she is capable of now. She then started running in the direction of more Vaglas are gathered at with their battle raging on to protect the city. Seeing the tide change in the battle gave a spoiler of hope and encouraged the soldiers and heroes to fight even harder as they helped the two Go-Busters fight against the buglars as best they could. Meanwhile, farther away elsewhere in another part of the city, Shoveloid and his entourage of buglars marched through Muzudafu, attacking any and all humans that crossed their path. Cars were thrown like boulders, roads in complete chaos as people got out of them and ran for their safety, and in the center are the Vaglas causing chaos and destruction. "That's right, you pathetic worms. Flee for your lives as it's the only thing you can do." Shoveloid shouted out loudly with the buglars by his side, destroying everything in their path. People were fleeing for their lives as a few heroes were seen either helping to get the people to safety or heading directly towards the chaos in hopes of handling it, unaware of the powerful forces taking part in the conflict. Shoveloid wasn't done yet however, as he then fired red-colored energy lasers from his fingers at the buildings, completely leveling them and landing around him as his attack caused many explosions and endless destructions around him. After a minute of this, he ceased his laser attacks before chuckling at the devastation around him. The fire was burning all around as ashes and smoke filled the air, making it as if the land itself had hell descend upon it. Collapse, rubble and wreckage of the buildings all around littered the landscape as the once blue sky turned red due to the intense flames and smoke and ashes all around. Shoveloid laughed psychotically from the devastation he caused before he and the buglars were about to take off to the destination of the Enetron, to complete their mission. "Ha ha ha ha. Too easy." Shoveloid laughed as he and the buglars marched down the abandoned destroyed street. "Stop right there, villains." Numerous voices shouted, getting the shovel metalloid and grunts to turn around to the source of the voices. They spotted a good number of pro-heroes running through the burning and devastated streets or through the air as they tried to head toward them. The Sentai villains were aware that the humans in this world weren't normal and had defenders protecting it, but it didn't matter to them one bit as the Vaglas still thought these humans to be pathetic, as they saw stupid humans approaching them in horde with an unamused expression. "Surrender now or face the conceit dash." Many of the humans started to shout toward the machines ahead of them, only to be cut off without warning as Shoveloid shot a laser blast that pierces right through one of the heroes' bodies faster than a blink of an eye, killing them in an instant with the buglars followed suit as they began to attack the heroes as well. The heroes fought back as best they could but soon began to get overwhelmed by the Vaglas numbers. "Ugh, stupid human." Shoveloid muttered with disgust in his tone. He can't understand how any of them would even think of facing against the Vaglas. They were all roaches that needed to be exterminated. And any foolish hero on this planet who stand in their way will be exterminated too, as they all were nothing but insects that needed to be squashed. Hearing something, the metalloid looked up high above him as he saw what looked like news helicopters flying high over the devastation he brought to the city to stream it live to those living at home all over the nation and the rest of the world. This made Shoveloid chuckle darkly, thinking it was nice for more humans to see these pathic heroes die before their eyes. They can't help but want to meet their fate, can't they? Shoveloid told himself with amusement, as he pointed his fingers at the helicopters to destroy it out of the sky. "Enough, criminal scum. A thundering male voice made the Metalloid stop what he was doing and turn around to look up to see something bright falling from the sky at high speed. What in the? Shoveloid set out in confusion, before it then crashed down in front of him, creating a massive crater and smoke cloud. But before the Metalloid could respond to the unexpected guest, a large pillar of fire manifests from the crater, revealing it to be the number 2 pro hero of Japan, Endeavor. I don't know what you are or where you came from, but hoped you and your friends had your fun because I'm going to incinerate you until you are nothing but a liquid puddle robot. Endeavor declared as the flames on his body burn more intensely. Oh. Another human coming to meet their end? Why is it that the need to die is so strong within you lesser beings? Shoveloid questioned in a mocking tone that only infuriated the flame hero. No matter, if you wish to die so badly, allow me to grant your wish human. The Metalloid said as he was scared by this human's fire. Fine, then villain. You'll regret ever challenging me to a fight. Endeavor said clenching his fists and then rushing at Shoveloid, launching several fiery punches at the monster. Shoveloid did his best to dodge and block the attacks but was still hit by some of them, as a few of the Buglars come running up to help the Metalloid fight against the hero. But Endeavor then jumped back a few feet away from the villains and began to ignite his right hand in fire. Hell Minefield. Endeavor shouted out his ultimate move while slamming his right fist into the ground, causing the surface to crack. Endeavor then lights his fire into the cracks, sending a wave of intense flames towards the robots as an intense eruption of flames underground, resulting in a violent explosion above ground that struck Shoveloid and all the Buglars at point blank. Arf! Shoveloid cried out while he was ignited in the blast. Endeavor removed his fist from the ground and stared at the massive wall of flames before him that almost stretched from one end of the street to the other. He saw no movement of any kind and figured that the robots had been taken care of. So the flame hero folded his arms with a stoic yet satisfied demeanor. Though some would call this excessive force, but Endeavor would say that it was necessary to prevent these monsters from causing more chaos. These robotic freaks were obviously a loose cannon, like those Go-Busters. Vigilante, villain, it didn't matter. They were all the same and they deserved no quarter from him or anyone else in his line of work. That takes care of them. Endeavor said with a scoff before unfolding his arms. Now then, there's this more work for me to d-dash, but then the number 2 hero was cut off by the sound of laughter coming from inside the flames, which confused him as he turned towards it. As the laughter grew louder, Endeavor's eyes widened in both shock and disbelief as the Shoveloid and the Buglars all walked out of the flames perfectly fine, as it seemed that the flame hero's ultimate move did little to actually stop them. That's not possible. Endeavor yelled in disbelief, at how his strongest attack did nothing to them at all. Ha 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 ha. Is that all you got, hero? Shoveloid laughed at the pathic attempt to defeat him, as he and the Buglars began to open fire at him. Endeavor barely reacted in time as he removed out of the way from the laser blasts, but he failed to notice a bunch of Buglars approaching him from behind and grabbing the man in place. Let go of me, you annoying pests. Endeavor demanded as he struggles to break free from the bugler's grapes, with the man using his quirk to burn them away, but it did not affect them whatsoever. What is going on? Why aren't my flames working on them? He thought in concern and frustration. Then before Endeavor knew it, he was shot multiple times by laser fire, and he fell back on the ground in pain with the Buglars releasing the man. Hell Minefield. I thought it would be hotter. Shoveloid laughed as he walked up to the downed hero. You humans have always been pathetic, even if you do have superpowers now. The Metalloid mocked him, as he grabbed Endeavor by his neck and lifted the man to his eye level. I'll show you what real power looks like. Shoveloid then used his right shovel arm to whack Endeavor with a full force blow, knocking him through the air into several buildings as he was now out of commission. Unfortunately for him, several of the news helicopters filmed the fight between the Endeavor and the Vaglas, as it was now seen by everyone. It's a good thing Enter upgraded our bodies with a program that makes us immune to quirks, or else his flames would have melted me down. Shoveloid thought as then to the buglars and began to speak to them. Alright, it was fun to torment these humans, but now let's get back to our main objective. He said, with them heading to the location to gather this world's Enetron. Musudafu City, afternoon. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city. Chitose Kazuki had no idea what she just walked into right now. For a few weeks now she has been trying to find any and all information on the Red Buster, aka Ren Amamiya, and has found almost nothing. After the Red Buster revealed his true identity and made that speech to the world, her boss Redestro ordered her to find out anything she could about the Vigilant, as he believed that Ren Amamiya was the key they needed in order to see their future plans. Something that the female reporter was more than happy to do, as she was interested in learning about the Red Buster. When Chitose first heard of the Red Buster, she tried to find any and all information on the biggest vigilante in the county and found almost nothing. Even after he revealed his identity to the world, Chitose still couldn't find anything on the boy. But luckily her search for answers was about to take fruit, as the newest Go Busters izukumidoriya, aka the Blue Buster, was someone she could get some information on and knew if she wanted to find the Red Buster then izukumidoriya was her best chance. After doing some quick research, she learned that Midoriya was just a quirkless 14-year-old middle school kid who attended Aldera Junior High, one of the few schools in the county that MLH secretly controls from the shadows in order to groom powerful quirked students to follow their way of thinking or drafting some of them into joining their army. He lives alone in an apartment building somewhere in Musudafu with his mother Inko Midoriya, who works as a nurse, and his father Hisashi Midoriya passed away years ago due to an on-job accident overseas. Chitose decided the best act was to head to Izuku's school first, with her crew confirming that he was still registered as a student and had learned he hadn't shown up for school today. She figured that he was possibly at home and laying low after yesterday's incident to try and avoid as many people as he could. So the next choice for Chitose was an easy one, as she and her team head straight to the Midoriya's residence in order to get the questions she was looking for, and if she was lucky then the Red Buster might be with them. But soon after, as Chitose and her assistant departed from the school, they were caught up in the middle of the vagless assault on the city, with Chitose watching everything unfold around her, clear expression of amusement, as she had never witnessed anything like this before in her life as a reporter. As much as Chitose wanted to learn about the Go Busters, still was a one-in-a-lifetime story that she couldn't afford to pass up. This is getting more thrilling by the moment. Chitose thought with a malevolent grin, as she and her crew were watching and recording the whole scene play out from a safe location. The screams, sirens, roars, crackling fires, and distant screeches filled the once tranquil atmosphere of Musudafu. This was looking to be a great day for the female reporter. "Ma'am," her assistant cleared her throat to get the Chitose's attention. "Are you sure it is a good idea for us to stay here? I mean, these guys don't seem like your regular run-of-the-mill villains," she said while they watched the Vagless continuing to tear the city apart and kill anyone in their sight. "We could always just have a freelancer keep an eye on a group of vigilantes. No offense, but when was the last time you did a field report in such a dangerous situation?" Chitose had to take a deep breath. "It's been a while," she admitted before cracking a smile. "But there's no way we're turning away from a juicy story like this one. Hurry up, you lot. That Enetron isn't going to take itself." Chitose and her assistants all heard the sound of an aggressive voice and multiple footsteps not too far from where they were located. "What was that?" a female assistant asked in both a curious and nervous tone, as she didn't like what she was hearing. "Whatever it is, it sounds very close," Chitose said in anticipation, as she and her assistants all moved from their hiding places to where they heard that voice and footsteps. After a few seconds of carefully walking so that no one would notice them, the group of reporters spotted an army of Vagless troops marching through the street without anyone standing in their way to stop them. Shoveloid was standing in front with a large number of buglars following right behind him, as they were making their way to the location of this world's Enetron. "Keep moving. The megazords will be arriving soon to steal the Enetron, and then this world will belong to us," Shoveloid said to his troops, as he was looking forward to seeing his offspring megazord. As the army of Vagless troops continued their advance down the street, they were completely unaware that Chitose and her crew were nearby watching them from a safe distance. What was that about megazords and Nenetron? An assistant asked as they were unfamiliar with those terms. I don't know, Chitose said with a hand under her chin at what the metalloid just said before a grin of excitement appeared on the woman's face. But whatever it is, it sounds interesting, to say the least. Ma'am, are we going to follow them? Another assistant asked nervously. You better believe we are. This is way too good for us to pass up. So keep filming everything you see. Chitose said with a smile that never left her face. As she and her assistants walked to their car and secretly followed the army of Vaglas without them knowing. Her gaze then shifted to a certain member of her crew. We'll be counting on your abilities this time, she said, getting a nod from one of her male assistants. Yes, ma'am. Just leave it to me, the man said with a look of determination, as he didn't want to let his boss down, and immediately got to work with their equipment. One of Chitosa's crewmen had a special quirk for this occasion, just like this, with the man running his fingers along with the expensive console. He had always preferred technology to living people, which is one of the main reasons for his joining the Meta Liberation Army. His quirk override allowed him to take over and control any system he touched. He had a limit of 2 hours, but would be more than enough time for what they had to film. He was recruited on Chitosa's team specifically for his quirk. He was tasked with hijacking every news station security system in the whole world, as they would use their emergency broadcasting system that could take over every TV screen and send out alerts of important information across phones and web browsers to show the whole world what the Go Busters were going to do next. Once he took over the broadcasting systems and fired it up. He watched as the systems warmed up. He started recording everything. We're good to go now, ma'am, the man said, giving her boss the green light. Good, be sure to start filming when I say so, Chitose said with a grin, as she couldn't wait for what will happen next. Now the real fun will begin. Soon all over the world was watching and listening to everything that was happening in Japan, with Vaglas mercilessly slaughtering everyone and everything in their path. Back at the hospital where Ren, Nick, and Melissa were at, the Go Busters had just finished eliminating the horde of buglars there with the help of soldiers and heroes. Now, with all the Vaglas being taken care of and everyone at the hospital was safe, Ren and Melissa regrouped with each other, while the soldiers, heroes, and the people in the hospital witnessing the fight were impressed by the two Busters' action and cheered their victory. They took care of those villains in no time flat. Yeah, way to go, Red Buster. Did you also see that blonde girl kicking butt? But where the Blue Buster? Probably somewhere else fight these things as well. I don't care if they're vigilantes anymore, the Go Busters are okay in my book. Melissa was visibly blushing at the attention. She couldn't help but feel a warm feeling in her chest. She couldn't help but enjoy the attention. She's never been the center of attention before, not like this. I defeated those things and saved everyone here, without a quirk. Melissa thought, as she felt pretty proud of herself. She thought all her life that she couldn't be a hero because she had no quirk. All the people she knew said those things and discouraged her to be one and told her to give up on such a dream because she's quirkless. Normally Melissa didn't care about quirkless discrimination. She knew it was just the words of idiots who had nothing better to do than to put others down to make themselves feel better about their own sad lives. But what she has done today proved them wrong. She stood by Ren's side to fight the killer robots and won the battle, while also saving the lives of everyone at the hospital. Melissa then looked at Ren, and he looked back at her with a smile. Melissa, are you okay? Ren asked her. Why, yeah. Just still trying to process this, Melissa said, as this felt like a dream to her. For what it's worth, you did great for your first time fighting the Vaglas. Nick complimented her with a job well done. Yeah, you are definitely going to make an amazing Go Buster. Ren agreed with a nod. Thanks, guys, Melissa awkwardly said with her face red. Then a few of the soldiers approached them as they were going to offer their thanks. Hey kids, we really appreciate the backup there. A male soldier said to them with a smile. Thank you, for saving our life. We're forever grateful to you both. A female soldier said, giving her own thanks. Don't mention it, we were happy to help. Melissa said to them while waving her hands. Yeah, we're lucky enough to be here when you got attacked. Nick said it, how lucky they were to be here. In any case, we have to get going real soon. The city isn't going to save itself. Ren said, reminding them of the crisis they were still in. Of course, we can hold things down from here on out. The female soldier said with confidence, holding up her weapon. You kids go give these things one hell of a fight, after all the trouble they caused everyone today. The male soldier said to them with a grin. That was the plan after all. Nick said, giving them a salute. The two soldiers returned the favor with their own salute before departing from the two go-busters. Okay, now that things are secured here, we should get moving to help more people around the city. Ren suggested to Nick and Melissa. It's going to be a bumpy road from here on out, Melissa, Nick said to her. Sure you can handle it? He asked, getting a smirk from the blonde girl. Who do you think I am? Melissa asked while pulling up her glasses. I'm a go-buster now. So bring it on. She shouted with her fist up in the air. Then out of nowhere, a loud growling noise comes from Melissa's stomach before she collapses down on the fall. Melissa! Ren shouted while he and Nick moved closer to the girl and kneeled down to support her. What's the matter? He asked in a worried tone. I'm so hungry. Melissa weakly said while holding her stomach. You're just hungry. Nick said in a tone of confusion before remembering something important. Oh, that's right, the yellow buster's weak point is calorie depletion. Weak point? Melissa weakly said with a look of confusion on her face. Nick, go buy her something sweet to eat. Since this is a hospital, there got to be a vending machine nearby. Ren said to his buddy Royd before taking out some money from his packet. Right, Nick said with a nod before taking the money and then running into the hospital to the closet vending machine. With him gone, Ren then lifted her up in his arms Princess Carrie style before walking inside the hospital. Despite her hunger, Melissa blushed while being carried like a princess by Ren. You can put me down now. Melissa said softly in a slightly shy manner, as they reached a bench. Okay, Ren said and then put her down gently on the bench. Don't worry Melissa, Nick would get you something to sack on. He said to her softly. Alright. Melissa replied back as she was trying to figure out how she was so hungry all of a sudden even though she had just eaten something before the attack on the city. You meant something about a weak point? It's sort of a weakness that each one of us main go-busters has, Ren explained to her about their weaknesses. Main is whenever I see a dog then I'll freeze up for the next few minutes. Izuku can overheat himself if he fights too much or is exposed to a heat source for too long. Melissa, your weak point is that you need a steady supply of sugar in your system, or run the risk of you becoming exhausted and immobilized. When explained it like that, it almost sounds like we're computers, Melissa commented about their weak points being like when a computer crashes. You're not wrong about that. Ren commented while rubbing his neck. Hey Ren. And Melissa, I'm back with some chocolate bars. Nick shouted while running towards them with his arms full of candy bars. Did you really have to buy that many? Ren asked looking at all the candy bars his partners were carrying. Not really, but given her weak point, it was better safe than sorry, Nick said walking up to the yellow buster. Here you go, Melissa. He handed her the candy in his hand. Thanks, Nick, but I can't possibly eat this much. Melissa said before unwrapping one of the candy bars and taking a bite out of it, as she could feel her hunger slowly fading away. If you're worried about gaining weight then don't. Your buster power gives you a high metabolism, so you can eat as much sweets as you without worrying about the consequences. Nick explained to her, making the girl sigh in relief. I see, that's good to know, Melissa said with a smile, as she always had a sweet tooth. How do I put this? She awkwardly stated with her head looking down at her candy bar. Thank you, for giving me this chance. I had almost given up on my dream. But then I met you. A quirkless boy using technology and gear to help people. She glanced up at him. I was furious. Envious. Hurting for so long. She started to tear up before taking another bite out of the chocolate bar. I wanted to be a hero so badly, not just stay in the lab and make the items for people. I was about to just accept that fate of my life, until you came into my life and shattered those beliefs about a quirkless persona like myself unable to be a hero. The blonde girl took a shaky breath and gave a bright smile. So thank you, Ren, I'm forever grateful to you. Ren could understand where she was coming from, since talking to her yesterday in the park, how she wanted to be a hero, how becoming a support item creator was a fallback on her original dream. Don't thank me, it was your own resolve that made you choose to take the call to action, Ren said with a smile while wiping the tears from Melissa's cheek and eyes. That way I knew you had what it took to become our yellow buster. Melissa then looked at Ren again, but this time in a different light. When she met him for the first time, she thought that Ren was a nice, intelligent, brave, young man like her with ambitions to become a superhero. But after learning he was the Red Buster today, she sees him in a much greater light. He's a hero in everything but name, his act of heroism gives her and others hope because he has proven to her that she can be a hero. And now she had the power to do so thanks, but she also wanted more. That's so just like you, Ren. Melissa said smiling slyly as she finished eating candy bar and regaining her strength before standing up from the bench. You really to go and be a hero? Ren asked her, getting a nod from her. Yep, let's save the city from the Vagless. Melissa said feeling pumped about this. Okay, but before we leave from here let's do some about your outfit, Ren said looking at the clothes she was currently wearing. What's wrong with what I'm currently wearing? Melissa asked as looked at her clothes in confusion. Nothing, but if you're going to save lives then you need to look good doing it. Ren said with a grin before turning his gaze to Nick. Nick, did you bring the briefcase that Zero gave us earlier today? You bet I did. Nick said before pulling out a briefcase with the Yellow Busters team uniforms. Here Melissa, this is yours. He said giving her the briefcase. A briefcase? What's in it? Melissa asked while looking at the briefcase with interest. Your uniform, Ren answered making her eyes go wide from the revolve. You see what I'm wearing right now? He asked getting a nod from her. Well there's a female version of that in the briefcase, and it was made specifically for you. So I have my own hero costume. Melissa cried out with a loud squealing of joy. I'm going to try this on right away. She shouted before rushing to the bathroom to change into her new outfit. In some ways, she reminds me of Izuku. Nick commented on the American girl's behavior. Yep, she got a lot of enthusiasm that's for sure. Ren said with a light chuckle. Then after a few minutes of waiting, Ren and Nick were standing outside of the hospital when they noticed their blonde friend returning back to them from changing into her uniform. Melissa was dressed in a black combat outfit with black combat boots and black gloves similar to the one Ren and Midoriya wear with her respective color being yellow, except she was wearing black combat shorts instead of long pants and a black fanny pack wrapped around her waist. She also sports a yellow and black strap around her shoulders with the Go Busters transpod attached, as her morphin brace was attached to her left wrist. She even changed her hairstyle to a long ponytail supported by a black RBB band. Whoa! Ren muttered in awe at how Melissa looked great wearing that outfit. Melissa noticed his expression and gave a sly grin. I take it, you like what you see? She asked before putting back on her glasses. No kidding, you look great in that outfit. Ren complimented her. It really suits you well. You even changed your hairstyle. Nick pointed out, as it reminded me of Yoko a bit. Yeah, my hair was kind of getting in the way when I was fighting earlier. So I decided to tie it up. Melissa explained while stroking a strand of her hair a bit. So shall we get going then? She asked, ready to swing into action. You know it, Ren said with a nod as he turned to Buddy Royd. Nick, that's your cue. Right. Let's go. Nick shouted before changing into his motorbike mode, as his human partner got on him. Your cruise awaits, my lady. Ren said in a charming tone as he held his hand out to her, which made her giggle. Well, what a gentleman you are, Melissa said, grabbing his hand and getting onto the bike right behind Ren. Here we go. Ren exclaimed before driving off the hospital parking lot and heading back into the fight. Mizutofu City, afternoon. Somewhere in the city, Midoriya and Himiko were working together to dispose of any problems they met with, and eventually ran into a group of heroes and soldiers who were escorting buses full of civilians to a safer area. They decided to help them move the people. But then out of nowhere, they were ambushed by a group of buglars and are now fighting them off the best they could. Midoriya fired laser blasts from his Ishigan Buster, taking down several grunts in the process. The Japanese soldiers and SWAT teams stood around the blue buster firing at the Vaglas as they charged toward their makeshift blockade to protect the buses full of civilians, as they were buying time for the buses to drive away. Himiko was blazing through the hordes of buglars with quick agile movement, as she cut them down thanks to the Sogon blade Midoriya gave her. Right beside her were heroes and soldiers who decided to go in for close combat to deal with the buglars. The robots toppled over each other as their brethren fell, but Midoriya could see that they weren't going to be stopped so easily. Despite all that they were throwing at them, the buglars kept coming with rest or fear. Hold the line. Do not let them through. A male hero ordered everyone, as they were doing everything in their power to stop the Vaglas advance. They just keep coming no matter how many we kill. An SWAT member cried out at the endless number of grunts. Take them out as quietly as possible. Avoid explosives and try to kill with as little shots as possible. The noise of the fight is attracting them. An female soldier said as they struggling to hold back the killer robots. There's just no end to them. Midoriya thought while gunning down every buglar in his sight. How is the transport coming along? He asked out loudly to a SWAT team who was guiding buses out. There's only one bus left. One of the SWAT officers replied back to him. Just keep holding them off as best you can until it leaves. Easier said than done. Himiko shouted while avoiding a buglar assault with acrobatic movements before slashing the robot into pieces. These guys aren't making it easy for us. She complained before dodging a laser blast. Just keep fighting. They're almost ready. Midoriya yelled out. Soon enough the last transport bus full of civilians was making their departure, with Midoriya back at the vehicle leaving in the area and to safety. Yes, they're going to make it. Midoriya said in joy as he and others were able to keep the civilians from the Vaglas. Holy SHT. Someone cried in pure shock before everyone's attention was drawn to a fast-moving object coming down the street and at them. Oh no. Midoriya and Himiko both gulped in horror seeing a pickup red truck heading their way. Inside the truck, the driver who was wounded on his right shoulder lost consciousness and control of the vehicle as smoke was coming from the hood of the truck as it looked like it was shot by a few laser blasts. Jesus Christ. A female soldier gasped upon seeing the vehicle making its way towards them at high speed. It's coming straight at us. Everyone move, now. A SWAT officer shouted out loud to everyone in the vicinity to move out before they were hit by the truck. And like that, every single person there immediately quickly moved out of the way of the speeding vehicle with it slamming into any buglars and objects in the middle of the street while not losing its momentum or speed. Izuku, move. Himiko shouted while rushing at the green-haired boy and tackling him on the ground, which pushed them both out of the path of the truck. But much to everyone's horrors, the out-of-control truck then made its way over to the last transport bus that was leaving and rammed right into the side of the vehicle, which stopped the truck in place, damaging the car's front side and deployed the airbag for the unconscious driver. The bus full of people wasn't so lucky as the truck crashed into the bus with enough force that the vehicle tipped over on its side, causing the people to scream in terror. "You okay?" Himiko asked in concern while onto the top of the boy. "Yeah, I'm good," Midoriya said with a groan before Himiko got off of him and him standing back up. "But the people in that bus might be hurt," he said looking at the tipped-over bus and seeing something that made his eyes widen in shock. A tank truck full of fuel was leaking gas tank, as the crash sent something flying at the fuel truck and punching a hole into its tank with the gas ran onto the street's ground and spread towards the nearby flames, that was right next to a bus full of people and unconscious driver of the truck. "Oh, God! Those people need help," Midoriya stated in a worried tone, with Himiko's eyes widening in concern as she also noticed the gas leaking into the flames. The blue buster swung his attention to the nearby law enforcers to warn them about the danger. "Hey, the people on that last bus are in danger and need our help right now," he said while pointing in the direction of the problem. Every one of the heroes and soldiers there looked in panic or horror at gas-leaking tank moving toward the fire and bus full of civilians and knew they had to act before it was too late. "SHT, the kid's right," a SWAT member cursed knowing that those people would die if the leaking gas reached those flames. "We gotta get those civilians out of that bus," he told the others. "But what about these things?" a female hero said as there were still some more buglars standing and already resuming their attack on the heroes and soldiers. "They don't seem like they'll let us do that. Then we'll have some of us help the civilians, while the rest of us deal with these BSTRDS. A male soldier said while fighting off the approaching enemy. "Toga, help me get those people out of here," Midoriya said with intensity. "Right," Himiko said with her face turning serious. Midoriya and Himiko didn't waste any time as they went into the chaos, nearly avoiding the debris on the ground and laser fire from the vagless grunts, trying to get as close to the trapped civilians with a few heroes and soldiers following behind them to assist in the recuse before the gas reaches the flames to kill the helpless people in the bus. The duo was about to reach the truck with the unconscious man first, as Midoriya used his super strength to pry open a truck's door with ease and tossed it on the ground. Then Himiko used the Sogon blade to cut the unconscious man's seatbelt, as the two carefully moved the man out of the vehicle and placed him on the ground. "How is he?" Midoriya asked her about the man's well-being. "He's unconscious and still breathing," Himiko said while holding a hand at the man's mouth to feel his breath and seeing the grown man slightly twitch from his injuries. "But only barely," she said, making Midoriya look a little worried. "Can you get him to safety? I still need to help the people trapped on the bus," Midoriya asked as he couldn't afford to waste any more time. "All right. Be careful," Himiko replied, with the blue buster giving her a quick nod before running towards the bus. When Midoriya ran to the endangered bus, he spotted a few of the soldiers and heroes already there trying to get out the trapped people in the bus while also keeping back the gas from the flames. "Help! Somebody, help us, we're trapped. I don't want to die. Where's All Might when we need him? Don't worry everyone. I promise we'll get you out of there soon," a hero cried out to the trapped scared civilians, before shifting his gaze to the other soldiers and heroes who were trying to get the bus open to free the trapped people. "What's taking so long? We need to get them out now before the gas oil reaches the fire." "We're trying to, but the bus rolled over on the side where the doors are located," a soldier said to the man. "I'm using my quirk to slow down the leaking gas, but I can't keep it up for too long," another random hero said as they used their power to slow down the gas oil progress, but knew it wouldn't last for too long. "Ah, damn it. We do not have the manpower or quick to get them out in time," the hero cursed in frustration at how bad things were looking for them and the civilians. "Then you can leave the heavy lifting to me," Midoriya said while getting their attention and finally reached the bus. "It's a go buster," Another soldier gasped in surprise to see the vigilante here to help them. Everyone, stand back. Midoriya said as he bent down on his knees. I'm going to flip over the bus. He stated before placing his hands underneath the collapsed bus and giving it a firm grip. When the Blue Buster made his declaration, the heroes and soldiers backed up a bit to give the boy some space to do his thing, and the trapped civilians on the bus hopefully looked out the windows at the vigilante and based themselves on what he was about to do. Midoriya activated his buster powers with both of his arm muscles glowing slightly green for a brief moment before fading. Then proceeded to lift the toppled bus with a tremendous amount of brute strength, as the large passenger vehicle began to slowly move upward to its rightful side. As the Blue Buster was using all his power to lift the bus back up, he felt his muscles tensing up and his body heating up with small streams of smoke coming off of him. Not good. I'm starting to overheat. Midoriya thought in concern with more steam being released from his body, as he had the bus halfway lifted. He remembered Ren and Nick warning him that each one of the main Go-Busters had a certain weak point and that his was if he fought too much, overused his power, or was exposed to a heat source too long, then he would start to overheat and go berserk, which would result in him attacking anyone in his sight, whether they be friend or foe, while gaining a temporary increase to his physical strength. After a while, he would collapse from exhaustion and lose his stamina. Hearing that made Midoriya worried a lot and concerned, as he didn't want to go on a rampage and hurt the people he was trying to protect. Soon, with one final push and the fear of losing his sanity for a brief moment in this crisis, Midoriya used the last of his strength to roll the bus full of people back over in place, as they were now able to leave the bus, much to everyone's surprise and joy. He did it. A random hero woman said in awe and joy. Midoriya then collapsed on one knee while breathing hard, as steam was pouring off his body. I've done all I can, get them out quickly. He said to them, as he needed a minute to cool himself off. You heard the kid, men, let's get these people out of here. Somebody ordered the group. Right. Every one of them shouted together and proceeded to help the civilians. A hero with a quirk that lets them morph their body into certain items, turned their hand into a blade and used it to cut through the stuck door of the bus. After that, the door was then literally cut from the bus and two soldiers threw it off to open up a pathway for the people inside. Okay, everyone get off the bus now. Go go go. A male soldier shouted as the passengers began to get off the bus frantically. In a short time, the passengers had all but got off the bus with the heroes and soldiers escorting them to safety, much to Midoriya's relief. Then multiple explosions went off that knocked a few people over and rightened them, as some leaking gas reached the nearby flames in the area, with more fire and destruction spreading out wider. The civilians began to run around like maniacs, with the law enforcers trying their best to calm them down, while Midoriya watched in horror at all the destruction and could smell fuel still leaking, with the nearby flames growing more even violent. Everyone please calm down and quickly evacuate from the premises. A female soldier addressed the saved civilians. This is bad. Midoriya said, looking at the terrible sight before him. I need to get moving fast. He stood up from his spot and was about to make a break for it. One of my students is still inside. One of the passengers, a black-haired woman, shouted hysterically, as this got Midoriya's attention. She is a young woman with straight, dark-colored hair that reaches just above her shoulders. She has large, navy blue eyes, usually seen tearing up due to her easily distressed personality. She is wearing a white blouse, a tan jacket, and a long, ankle-length green skirt with a belt and heeled work shoes. Her name is Komari Ikoma, a school teacher at Masagaki Primary School. Please, someone save him. Komari pleaded, tears running down her face as her other students with her looking worried for their classmates' safety. To Midoriya's horror, he heard the cries of a school kid inside the bus, with the flames getting closer to the vehicle. Mama, please stay back. It's too dangerous to get any closer. A hero said while holding the female teacher back from rushing in danger. Please. You have to do something. Komari let out a cry of worry with her instincts as a responsible adult kicked in and tried to get past the hero holding her back. Against all regard for his own safety, Midoriya ran headfirst inside the bus and past the sea of fire to find Komari's student before it was too late. "Hello? Is there anyone here? Please come on out," Midoriya said, hoping to find the boy in each seat, as all the smoke in the bus was making it hard for him to see properly. Finally, as the blue buster got near the back of the bus, he found a young blonde-haired boy with sharp teeth hiding on the floor as he looked beyond terrified. "Hey kid, are you okay?" Midoriya asked, getting the boy to look up at him, with tears in his eyes. The blonde-haired boy then clings to the Midoriya's body, and he starts to cry into the green-haired boy's chest as he is so scared, with Midoriya wrapping his arms around the boy to calm him down. "It's okay, don't be scared. I got you," Midoriya whispered to the boy in a gentle tone that slightly calmed him down, as he picked him up in his arms. "Let's get you out of here," he said, and was about to leave. Then the front of the bus suddenly exploded, rocking it violently and caught on fire, blocking their only path out of the vehicle. "DMN." Midoriya cursed under his breath to see their only means of escape blocked off. "Can't go that way anymore," he said as the blonde-haired boy in his arms started to worry again. Midoriya then turned his head to a nearby window, and in a split second, the boy knew he was only left with one option available for him. "Hey, listen," Midoriya said, addressing the boy in his arms, as he looked up at the blue buster. "I have an idea on how to get us out of here, but I need you to make sure no matter what happens you don't let go of me. Think you can do that?" he asked the boy with a bright smile on his face. "Why, yes," the blonde-haired boy said with a confident nod, as Midoriya's smile seemed to have calmed the boy down and gave him a bit of hope. "Good," Midoriya said before pushing the button on his transpod. "Transport." A voice from the transpod announces, as an Ishigan buster digitally materializes in front of him. Midoriya wasted no time grabbing the blaster with his free hand and started firing shots at the bus's windows, shattering the glass and opening a new exit escape for them. "Okay, ready?" Midoriya asked, getting a nod from the boy. "Then here we go," he stated before leaping out the window of the vehicle and over the flames below. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, the bus exploded in a large fiery explosion a moment later, right after Midoriya and the primary school boy got out of the vehicle. The recoil of the blast sent the two boys flying forward even faster and uncontrollably, with Midoriya holding the small boy in both his arms protectively as the teen's body crashed roughly on the ground multiple times and rolled around without stopping, while also protecting the primary school boy in his arms from getting hurt. Midoriya's violent crashing eventually stopped with him lying on his back in slight pain, as the blonde-haired boy clinging in his arms was unharmed. "Now that was way too close," Midoriya commented as he thought they were goners there for a moment. "You good too?" he asked the boy on his chest, who gave the assente nod before getting up from his savior. "Great," he said with a chuckle as he sat up. It didn't matter if he got hurt, he was used to the pain and would heal eventually. But he wasn't going to let the boy he just saved get hurt. Tamashiro. Both boys heard the screaming of a woman and saw it was Komari running up to them with tears in the poor teacher's eyes. The second Komari got close to her student, she immediately gave the Tamashiro a hug, with the boy returning the favor as they started to cry in each other's arms. "Thank goodness you're okay, Tamashiro," Komari cried out as she held her student tightly. Soon after, the kids from Komari's class all ran over to them and dogpiled her and Tamashiro. The school children were all hugging and crying along with their teacher, who gripped them tightly like she never wanted to lose them again, tears streaming down her cheeks as she did. Midoriya, who was watching this touching moment play out before his eyes, felt glad that he was able to save that boy's life and reunite him with his classmate. This was one of the reasons why he wanted to be a hero in the first place, and hoped he could continue to do his best for the people of his world. Izuku. Midoriya heard someone calling his name before something crashed right into him, making him see Himiko holding on tight. You're okay. You nearly scared me half to death when I saw that explosion. Himiko cried into his chest. Midoriya gave her a light chuckle before patting her on the back. Sorry for giving you a scare, but I promise you I'm okay. See? He said as they separated from one another and got up from the floor. Yeah, you are. And you even saved that kid too. Himiko said, whipping away her tears, and gave the boy a smile. You really are a true hero, unlike those other fakes. Thank for the words of encouragement. Midoriya said, getting a giggle from her. Excuse me, young man. A female voice made Midoriya and Himiko look back to see Komari and her student standing in front of them before the female teacher bended her head down towards them. Thank you for rescuing my students. She said, crying a bit, with kids also giving their thanks to Midoriya. It was nothing, ma'am. I was just doing my duty as a Sentai. Midoriya said to them with a smile, before some soldiers walked up to the group. Ma'am, please, you and your children need to evacuation with us. It's still not for you all here. The soldier said to them. Right. Komari said with a nod before looking back at Midoriya and Himiko one last time. Thanks you again for your help. The teacher said as she and her class were escorted away with the soldiers, with them waving the kids off. Bye, you take care now. Himiko said with a smile. Thanks again for coming along with us, a female anti-skill soldier said as she walked up to them. Wasn't sure if we would have made it without the both of you, assistant. No problem. Times like these are when people need to really pull together and help each other. Midoriya stated to her. The woman nodded. Yep, you're right about that. Too bad not many people have that kind of mindset under normal conditions. Maybe if they did, the world would be a better place. She said with a frown. Midoriya looked over at the other heroes, SWAT members, and soldiers, who was currently helping the civilians and taking them away to the evacuation shelter, as all the Vaglas in this area was taken care of. The presence of the Vaglas had made a major change on the city, one of the more notable changes being that many areas of the city had experienced power outages from the constantly rampaging buglars that seemed to have an obsession with attacking people and spearing more chaos. The Blue Buster looked back to the soldier to speak to them. Yeah, it just might be, Midoriya replied as she looked to the skies. It was still daylight at the moment, but its sky was full of dark smoke clouds. But we can worry about that later. We still got a city to save. We can handle the rest from here. You kids should get going. There are this plenty of folks out there who need your help. A soldier said to the kids. Okay, you guys stay safe. Midoriya said with a nod. Right back at you. The soldier said before leaving the two alone. Midoriya jumped as he felt a hand slap him on the back. Good job, Izuku. We managed to clear most of the buglars from this area and the people here are now walking away with happy expressions. Himiko said with a toothy grin. Yeah, we only had a few casualties, but the rest of the soldiers and heroes, along with civilians, seem unharmed. Midoriya said a slightly heavy tone, while wiping the sweat from his forehead. But we can't stop now with the Vaglas still running loose in the city. Are you okay? Himiko asked as she noticed he looks a bit tried. I'm fine. Just a bit tried is all. Midoriya said, catching back his breath. Anyway, thanks for your help, Toga. Things would have been a whole lot difficult if you weren't here with me. Himiko had a slight blush on her face from his words. Stop, you're going to make me blush. She replied nonchalantly, giving her usual toothy smile. Come on, Toga. We still got work to do. Midoriya said to his partner. K. Himiko replied back. The duo then ran off to another location in the city. Meanwhile, in a different location in the city, the wild pussycats, Aizawa, Midnight, and firefighters had helped the stream of people move away as quickly as possible, keeping their eyes open to avoid trampling. They soon learned that 4 eyes were scarcely enough to handle a completely panicked stream of people. I know it's a lot to ask, but please try to remain calm. We have the situation under control. Midnight told the civilians. Hey, be careful. There's a little girl there, don't step on her. She warned a man as he was about to trample a little kid because he was rushing. Ragdoll was right next to Pixie Bob and helped her teammate guide her Earth Beast's movements, as she used her quirk to observe the surrounding area for people to help and Buglars to fight. I located 4 more people in the east-west of here, Ragdoll said to Pixie Bob. But it looks like they're fleeing from a group of Vaglas. She informed her in a worrisome tone. These Vaglas are such a pain to deal with. Pixie Bob said while also using her Earth Flow quirk to create a vast number of beast-like creatures out of the ground to keep the Vaglas in the area at bay as they were getting the civilian safety. And my Earth Beasts are barely lasting long against them. But that won't stop me from clawing them into pieces. She said with a menacing smile. Mandalay, there are civilians in East-West that need some help as well as some in the southern and northern areas who are trapped in some building, Ragdoll told her. Got it. I'll let anyone in the area know about the situation so they can help. Mandalay said with a nod before using her quirk to send telepathic messages directly to the firefighters and heroes in the area's minds to help rescue people quickly. Don't push each other around, you only risk getting hurt. Tiger said as he and a few firefighters were escorted away the people. Sir, are you okay? I can carry you to the safe zone. Aizawa asked an elderly man who looked like he couldn't walk fast enough because of his bad back. Thank you, Mr. Hero. The old man said, now riding on the hero's back. Luckily for the pussycats and firefighters, Nizu was there to take a great weight off their shoulders, as he was the one to organize the rescue efforts with his brilliant intelligence and planning. Yes, very good. Now head to this next location on the double. Nizu told them while pointing at certain on a map for them to go to. While the rest of you help the wild pussycats in evacuating the civilians here to the nearest center. He said to them. Yes, sir. The law enforcer shouted to the creature before running off to do their part in helping the people from the inventors. Despite all the chaos that was happening all over the city, Nizu couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement rising up inside of him at an era-changing moment like this. The winds of change are upon us now, Nizu said before looking up at the sky with a tiny smile. And the Go Busters are playing an important role in this new era. He stated as he was looking forward to what comes next. In another location of the city, the sounds of human screams and the inhumane shrieks of the Vaglas rang out from the streets as citizens were running and screaming in a panic with vehicles came flying out through an intersection and smashed against the sidewalk and buildings collapsing from being too unstable to support their weight anymore. Ran, Melissa, and Nick arrived on the scene now a moment too soon to witness the previous heroes, soldiers, and law enforcement engaged in a battle with a horde of Buglars as scared civilians fled past them. The 2 teens and Buddy Royd caught their breath as chaos unfurled before them as scared civilians fled past the 3. Oh my goodness! Melissa whispered in horror at the horror sight before her. These Vaglas are completely ruthless. This tokusatsu villains for you. Ren stated with a scowl, listening closely to the haunting noises as they got off of the motorcycle with the Buddy Royd switching to his human form. They saw no mercy towards anyone. Well, look on the bright side of things. Nick said, trying to cheer up the mood a bit. If we didn't take care of that huge horde Buglars at the hospital, there'd be a lot more enemies to deal with. Bef. Nick. Ren cut him off with a disturbed face and stern voice. Do not finish that sentence. He said as he did not want to tempt fate in this situation. The 2 Busters and Buddy Royd peered out onto the street up ahead, which flashed with gunfire and quirks lights as Japan's law enforcement swerved into position to cover the fleeing civilians. Gang Akra and his sidekicks were there ushering civilians away before more large military vehicles roared down the road and screeched to a halt. Doors flew open from the vehicles and men armed to the teeth stormed out. Go, go, go. Move it. Secure a perimeter. The squad leader ordered, forming a line behind the police cars, training their weapons on the monster horde. Fire. A thunderous storm of bullets erupted from their rifles, smacking into the buglars with bullets bouncing off of their metal bodies. The buglars were making clicking noises at how the bullets had zero effect on their bodies and charged at the humans with weapons in hand. The SWAT team and soldiers went wide-eyed in horror as the robots descended on them. Holy God! The lead soldier was snagged by a bugler's claw and tossed aside like a ragdoll. The grunts tore through the local law enforcement like they were nothing, and then the hero joined in the fight too, but was struggling to deal with the horde of buglars as their quirks and weapons didn't do much to slow them down. What the hell are these things? Back up. We need AH. Get back. Get back, you freaks OFAGH. SHT. We can't keep this up for too long. All units, fall back. Fall back now. Come on guys, we're heroes. Let's go plus ultra on these DMN villains. Unable to look at the grisly sight anymore, Melissa shrank back with a shaky breath and was saddened to see the machines that she loved so much causing this level of destruction. These robotic monsters from another world that she learned from Ren and Nick, had no right to terrorize another. But yet, here they were, doing what it was their dark and cruel nature to do. And this world was completely unprepared for the threat that was the Vagless. This is horror. We need to do something. Melissa pleaded and was met with a serious look from Ren. Yeah, you're right, but first, Ren said as he turned to his robot companion. Nick, go help whoever you can to get to safety. He told the robot in an urgent manner. Right, I'm on it. Nick said with a quick nod and rushed out to help anyone who needed it. Let's go, Ren stated seriously to Melissa, who nodded in response. Right, Melissa responded with them charging into the fray to meet the Vagless head-on. Melissa used her power jump to leap high up in the air and then drop-kicked the first buglar she was closest to from hard behind, sending it crashing into other buglars and making them all tumble on the ground, while Ren darted past all of the buglars who was nearest to the civilians and law enforcement in a red blur that quickly takes them out in the process and saving the people in danger by killer robots. Somebody call for some backup. Ren's voice rang out as everyone gasped in surprise to see who it was that saved them from the villains. It's the Red Buster. Somebody shouted out in a mixture of joy and relief. We're saved. Gang Orca tosses a buglar aside before his gaze is drawn to the two vigilantes. Go Busters. So you're here too, huh? The veteran hero said with interest in his tone, as he wasn't that surprised to see them here helping the defenseless. Everybody get somewhere safe. Melissa announced. We'll take care of the Vagless. Her words alone were enough for the people to snap out of their daze and do as the blonde girl commented. This immediately got the attention of the few Vagless in the area, and they now had their focus on the two busters like predators surrounding their newest prey, as they rushed at them both to eliminate the newest threat, with the Red and Melissa not giving the smallest glimpse of fear. Ren watched as 6 buglar rushed towards him and began to fade them with incredible reflexes and martial arts skills. He then launched a reverse roundhouse kick on the first buglers in the abdomen before swiftly dodging the second buglar claw attack by sidestepping to the left. Ren didn't waste the opportunity to take advantage of this chance and reached up to grab the bugler's arm, then pulled the evil robot forward to himself to deliver a knee to the Vagless's chest before finishing things off by elbowing the buglar in the back. Then the third Vagless came in for an attack, only for Ren to spin to the right side to avoid the blow and uses his momentum from the spin to strike the buglar in the head with a left punch, right before getting grabbed from behind by 2 Vagless as the boy was struggling to break first. The Red Buster then sees the 6th buglar coming towards him for a strike, only for Ren to use the Vagless holding onto him to lift himself up and kick the approaching buglar in the crest, pushing the grunt back on the floor. Performing that kick managed to loosen the hold the buglars had on him, with Ren taking advantage of this opening to free himself from the Vagless grips before shaving the buglar on his left side away. he then threw his left fist at the buglar on his right side before turning around to punch the buglar he shaved away in the stomach, and finishing the Vaglis up with a kick to the chest. But before the Red Buster couldn't take a breather, he narrowed his eyes as more Vaglis showed up at him, as Ren blocked an attack from the first buglar and knocked it aside with a punch before instantly kicking another buglar away with a right straight kick. As he lowered his leg, Ren noticed the two more Vaglis who were pointing their weapons at the boy before firing laser blasts from that direction. Ren narrowly avoided the shots as he proceeded to run towards the grunts before leaping in the air and immediately barrel rolling on the floor next to the buglar, as the boy swiftly took them down with a fury of punches before axe kicking away and then disappeared in a burst of speed to move on to his next target. Melissa ran up to a group of Vaglis grunts and then punched at one with a left hook, then a right punch to another, before having to duck under an attack from behind by a buglar as she counterstrikes with a strong back kick that knocks the grunt over a good distance away. The girl then saw two more Vaglis trying to punch her with a double assault at the same time, but the yellow buster leads backward to avoid the punches and grabbed both the buglar by their arm, then using their bodies to flip forwards them with the use of her own momentum and taking them down onto the ground hard. When Melissa let go of the buglar, she had just enough time to dodge out of the way as the girl saw 6 grunts surrounding her and had their weapons pointed at her, as this only made the yellow buster smirk a bit before she couched down to the floor. It didn't take too long for them to fire at her, only for Melissa to quickly jump high into the air to dodge the laser shots as they hit the Vaglis grunts instead, making sparks fly off their bodies and falling over dead on the floor, with Melissa spiral flipping forward in the air to axe kick another unexpected buglar on its shoulder to the ground before gracefully landing on the ground. More enemies came forward to take her own, but the yellow buster ran straight towards them as well. Once she got close enough to the Vaglis, Melissa dropped to the floor and started to slide underneath their legs, knocking all of the buglars off of their feet to the floor, before hurriedly jolting back up on her feet as another killer robot came running at the girl. Melissa shifted her body from side to side to evade the buglar attacks as she blocked another strike and countered with a punch that knocked the grunt back, before immediately ducking a punch another one sent her from the right. Then an idea came to mind that made Melissa spin around rapidly as if she were on the ice and kicked 3 Vaglismen off of their feet. Meanwhile, as the 2 busters were kicking Vaglis butt, Gang Orca's sound wave blew a group of buglars and caused an explosion that slowed the Vaglis down a bit. While the dust plumed, the hero caught sight of the vigilante team that took the nation by storm as they were taking care of the villains with ease and knew what must be done at this very moment. Alpha Team, secure the civilians and injured. Gang Orca's voice boomed through the chaos. Beta Team, assist the Go Busters in holding off the villains and cover the Alpha Team. Yes sir. Gang Orca's sidekicks replied as the Beta Team men let out battle cries that ranged throughout the city street and charged at the enemy, while the men in the Alpha Team began to move the civilians and injured off the battlefield, with Gang Orca releasing a second sound wave attack the Vaglis forces. Chaos continued to consume the streets with a bout of flashing of deadly quirks, lasers, and gunfire from all around, with both sides giving their best to prevail as the victories. When Ren took out another buglar with a kick, he noticed someone screaming as the boy quickly turned to see who it was and saw it was a little girl around 5 or 6 with green hair and frog-like features, being approached by 2 buglar. SHT. Ren cursed as he used his super speed to appear in between them before tapping his transpod to summon a weapon to use. Transport. A voice from the transpod announced, as Sogon blade digitally materialized in front of the buster. Ren took the blade with his right hand and swiftly swung it diagonally downwards at the 2 buglars, making them spark before exploding in an instant. You good, kid? Ren immediately turned his head to the frog girl, who was actually Satsuki Azui. Satsuki nervously nodded to him with tears in her eyes after the near-death experience. Satsuki/Ren. Ren and Satsuki turned to see Midoriya with his Ishigan buster in hand, escorting an older girl around his age with frog-like features at the end of the street, while they were heading towards them. Big sis, Tsu. Satsuki shouted at her older sister, Tsuyu Azui. Ren then immediately picked up Satsuki in his arms and rushed over to reunite the sisters, with Tsuyu taking her little sister from the Sentai and embracing her in a hug. "Izuku, how was things on your end?" Ren asked, running up to his male friend. "Rough, but I was managing," Midoriya replied to him. "And you?" "The same as well," Ren said as his gaze shifted to the Azui family. "I take it, they're related then," he said as he can notice their frog-like features, and guessed they were siblings. "Yeah," Midoriya said with a nod. "She was searching for her sister after they got separated and decided to help in any way I can," he told him. "Better late than never, I suppose," Ren commented with a chuckle. "Thank you both, Ribbit," Tsuyu said, giving her sincere gratitude to the vigilantes for saving her little sister's life. "My little sister is this alive now because of you." "Happy to help," Midoriya said with a smile. "It's not safe here. Let's get you two to safety," Ren said, with them nodding in agreement, before running across the street while avoiding the chaotic battles around them. The group then had an unfortunate run with a group of Vaglas blocking their position. "CRP, there's more of them," Midoriya cried out as he pointed his blaster up at the Vaglas. "Get behind us," Ren told the two girls while summoning his Ishigan Buster and pointing it at the enemy. The two sisters did as he said and got behind the two Go-Busters with frightful expressions at the approaching villains. But suddenly, out of the blue, Melissa and Himiko came leaping into the action as both girls began to quickly take out a good number of the Vaglas grunts, with Melissa raining down laser blasts from the sky at them and Himiko moving through the group while slashing her blade at the enemy. Soon after, the Buglars began to discharge electricity from their bodies, and then they exploded into nothing but pieces, with both girls landing on their knees in front of Ren, Midoriya, and the Azui family. "Ren/Izuku." Melissa and Himiko shouted out their respective partner names in joy, before pausing for a second and looking each other way with weird expressions on their faces. "Who are you?" they both said to each other in a mixture of confusion and bewilderment. Ren and Midoriya shared the same feelings as the two girls, as the two boys looked at the girls and reacted for different reasons. In Ren's case, he sees Himiko wielding one of their weapons in her hand, and for Midoriya, he sees Melissa wearing their team uniform and has on a morphin brace. The two boys then looked at each other before asking the same question as the girls simultaneously. "Who is she?" They both pointed at the girls. Then, before anyone could give an answer, more Vaglas suddenly showed up with their attentions, drawing them back to the ongoing battle. "Fight now, talk later," Ren said with a serious manner as he readied his weapon at his foes. "Right." Midoriya, Melissa, and Himiko all said together in agreement with serious expressions, as this wasn't the time for questions. Melissa and Himiko rushed forward at the enemy, while Ren and Midoriya stayed back behind to perfect Tsuyu and Satsuki as the two boys were shooting down the Vaglas with their Ishigan Busters. While Melissa was charging in at the enemy, she quickly tapped her transpod to summon a weapon. "Transport." A voice from Melissa's transpod announced as the Sogon blade digitally materialized in front of her in midair. Melissa immediately grabs the Sogon blade before swinging it to block an incoming Buglar attack, with both of their weapons clashing against one another. "Get lost, already," Melissa snarled at the Buglar in utter annoyance, with her vaulted over the grunt as the robot swung its claw-hand weapon at her, missing her by several feet. Once she landed behind the enemy, Melissa jumped into the air and slammed into the Buglar back with her power kick, launching the grunt into other Buglars and taking them out in a matter of seconds. Another Buglar attempted to strike her from behind, but the yellow Buster reacted fast enough to turn around and slash the monster in the chest before tossing it aside with a kick, and then she swung her blade to the right to hit one more Buglar from assault her on the side. Then a few Buglars shoot their blasters at the girl, which forces Melissa to jump off as the Vaglas keeps lying on the pressure and making the American girl take cover behind a car. "These guys aren't making this easy for me," Melissa muttered in frustration, as she was leaning back against a car and peeked her slightly out to see the Buglars wasn't letting up. Ren noticed the troubling position Melissa was in before stepping forward with his eyes narrowing at the enemy. He brought his Ichigan Buster up at the vagless grunts and pulled the trigger on his blaster to lead waste at a few of the buglars as they stopped their assault on Melissa. When Melissa saw what her team did, she ran forward at the remaining vagless grunts, before slamming a kick into the bugler's stomach and then started to slash away at each one of them with her blade, permanently ending them for good. Her gaze turned towards Ren before giving him a nod of thanks with him returning the gesture as the female Sentai swung back into action once more. Himiko swung her blade at a fast pace, striking at every single one of the vagless grunts in her path over and over again. "It's too bad that you're robots, so I can't taste your BLD," she told them before cutting down another buglar in an instant thanks to the Sogon blade. Vagless soldiers from the distance appeared a few feet away from Himiko and shot laser blasts at her. Himiko swiftly dodged the laser fire by somersaulting out of the way and towards the enemy, before jumping into the air and doing several acrobatic flips over the buglars while still avoiding the vagless laser blasts. The teenage girl then landed behind the buglars before immediately slashing the vagless, as they exploded to death with Himiko saw more of them coming at her which only made the girl happily lunge at the enemy. Again, she was forced to jump away from more laser blasts as Himiko threw her weapon into the bugler's chest and landed on top of the robot, before removing the blade from the buglar and hopping off its body as it then exploded. Then she landed on top of another buglar, right before swiftly cutting off the grunt's head and kicking the headless robot into other buglars that floor them all on the ground. Ren, who had separated from Midoriya not too long ago, ran through the street and fired down on any vagless he approached while also helping out anyone he came across, before dodging a punch from a grunt by leading to the side and then punching the lights out of the buglar. But before Ren could catch a break, he then noticed 3 more buglars on a nearby rooftop and had their weapons pointed at him as the teen immediately made a mad dash down the street while the buglars from the roof shot him. As Ren was dodging laser fire from above, the Red Buster quickly came up with a plan to get him out of this jam and hopped out the roof of a car before leaping off it as the boy soared in the air while multiple laser shots went past him. The Red Buster held out his left arm and then pushed the button on his morphin brace that fired a tiny rope out of the device with it flew at a street lamp, as the rope began to wrap around the lamp. The boy used this to swing around the street and fly over the battlefield below while giving the vagless a hard time as they continued shooting at him with them missing their mark. Ren then swung around high enough to get near the buglars on the rooftop before blasting them with his weapon and taking them out of the equation, as the boy swung back down below the streets and released the rope on the street lamp, making him free fall on the ground to meet even more vagless waiting for him. When Ren hits the ground, he barrel rolls on the floor and starts to slide on his back forward as he points his Ichigan Busters at the buglars, starts to wildly fire at each one of the vagless he passes by and taking them out with them exploding to death. As soon as he stopped in place, he immediately got up from the floor and moved on to more enemies to deal with. Midoriya was shooting down every buglars, while moving across the street as he guided and protected the Azuri family, as the 2 sisters took shelter in a nearby convention store. "Wait in here until this blows over," Midoriya told them. "Okay, Ribbit," Tsuyu said back while her little sister's hand before they went into the store. Midoriya sighed in relief to know that they were safe for a moment before the green-haired boy yelped in surprise as he involuntarily ducked under a vagless punch and backed up against a tree as 3 buglars cornered him. This only made the Blue Buster scowl at the enemy in front of him with the boy slowly taking a fighting stance and gesturing for the small minions to come at him, as they obliged and charged at Midoriya. Blocking a couple of punches and weapon strikes, Midoriya bends down to the floor, showing off his flexibility as he trips all of the buglars to the floor and jumps back to his feet as more vagless shows up to attack him. Midoriya in response gunned down a few of the buglars before the other grunts got closer to him and one of the buglar threw a punch at the young teen, who swiftly dodged the punch as he grabbed onto its arm and twisted it with Midoriya using this position to fall down on the floor and stretched out his legs to latch onto grunts, and then threw buglar off across the street. Jumping back onto his feet, Midoriya's eyes widened as he saw three monsters rushing towards him and crossed his arms as they rammed into him, and was sent flying back to a building's wall as Midoriya slammed his back before letting out a painful groan. The blue buster soon picked himself up from the floor while glaring hard at the buglars who attacked him and growled angrily as he grabbed onto a nearby traffic signpost and used his super strength to rip out the sign from the pavement with ease. This display of brute strength somehow managed to freak out the three grunts muttered among themselves in disbelief while Midoriya held the traffic sign with both of his hands and grinned wildly at the Vagless mischievously, as he then used the signpost like a club and swung it at the monsters, sending them flying away onto a building wall and shattering them into pieces. Midoriya just smirked as he let go of the traffic sign on the ground before the others regrouped near him, as they were now surrounded by more buglars with their backs facing one another. "This is starting to get real annoying," Midoriya said with an annoyed tone, as he got into a fight stance. "No kidding. I seriously don't want to die today." Himiko agreed with a scowl and blade in hand. "But we have to keep fighting if we're going to survive this," Melissa said, encouraging them to not lose sight of their goal. "Yeah, so let's give this one final push," Ren told them, as each one of the teams was ready for another round. Just before they were going to deal with the enemy, Gang Orca suddenly leaped forth in front of the group and unleashed a powerful hypersonic shockwave at the killer robots that caused a massive explosion that shattered the enemy forces away. After unleashing tremendous force on the interdimensional invaders, other bodies sped past them as the four teens saw the heroes, soldiers, and SWAT team launching a counterattack on the Vagless. "Wow! It's Gang Orca!" Midoriya cried out in surprise while fanboying over seeing a high-ranking hero. "What sort of villain targets children?" Gang Orca growled angry at the evil robots. "Only true cowards go after the young ones." The buglars didn't care for what the hero had to say and only retaliated in response by charging at the humans. "Melissa." "Midoriya." Ren told her while holding up his Ishigan Buster. "Yeah." Midoriya said, doing the same. "Right." Melissa replied with a nod as she knew what he meant. Before Gang Orca unleashed another shockwave at the Vagless, the three Go-Busters stood by him and pointed their Ishigan Buster toward the enemy as they opened fire on the buglars while Gang Orca used his quirk that resulted in the wrath of an unstoppable explosion. Then when the smoke cleared to see the buglars wiped out completely, Gang Orca turned to face the teenager with a slight glare. "So you're the Go-Busters?" Gang Orca spoke to the Sentai team in a tone of interest, didn't the way he was looking at them. "I wish we could have met under different circumstances, but your help here will be much appreciated," he said, surprising the four teens a bit, as they didn't that kind of response from a hero since they were technically vigilantes. Ren smirked in response before speaking to him. "Happy to be working with you. Just try and keep up with us, old man," he jokingly said, earning a few chuckles from the others. "Cheek, brats," Gang Orca said, laughing a bit with a grin. "My sidekick will handle evacuation, while we focus on taking care of these villains," he said with a serious look. "Yeah, that way no one will get caught up in our fight," Midoriya said as they looked ahead of the other soldiers and heroes fighting the remaining Vagless in the area. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's get in there and kick some butt," Himiko said with a thrilling tone. "Back to action then," Melissa said with a smile before they charged back into the fight to help their allies. Takumiai Sentai Go-Busters members. Red Buster, Ren Amamiya, Quirk, Quirkless, Buster Power, Hyper Speed. Blue Buster, izukumidoriya, Quirk, Quirkless, Buster Power, Super Strength and Inorganic Duplication. Yellow Buster, Melissa Shield, Quirk, Quirkless, Buster Power, Power Jump, Power Kick, and Double Jump. And many more to join. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 8. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author GokuMuto on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.